The fall of the Jedi was not fate. It was not destiny. It was a series of mistakes, each one leading them closer to their downfall. They were not outmatched in power. They were not outnumbered in skill. They were outplayed in a game they never even realized they were in. Order 66 was not the moment the Jedi lost. It was simply the moment they realized they had already lost. The moment they understood that everything they fought for had been taken from them long before a single blaster was fired. The Jedi Order stood for thousands of years, surviving countless wars, betrayals, and threats from the Sith. They were the guardians of peace, the keepers of balance, the last line of defense against the darkness. Yet, when the time came, they crumbled in a single night. It was not because the clones were too strong. It was not because Palpatine was too powerful. It was because the Jedi were blind. They believed they were untouchable. They trusted too easily. They ignored the warnings. And when their end came, they were too late to stop it. Not because they were weak, but because they never saw it coming. But what if they had? What if the Jedi had taken a different path? Could they have prevented Order 66? Could they have saved themselves from destruction? The answer is not as simple as fighting harder or being more careful. The truth is far more complicated. Because to prevent Order 66, the Jedi would have had to challenge everything they believed in. They would have had to step away from their traditions, question their own decisions, and recognize that the war they were fighting was never their war to begin with. They would have had to make the kind of choices that the Jedi Order was never willing to make. Some say the Jedi were doomed no matter what, that Palpatine's plan was too perfect, that the clones were too loyal, that the Republic was already too broken. But history is not written by inevitability. It is written by the choices people make. And the Jedi had choices. They had warnings. They had opportunities to change their fate. But they let arrogance and fear keep them on a path they should have never walked. The destruction of the Jedi was not just a victory for the Sith, it was the consequence of 1,000 missed chances. In this video, we will explore how the Jedi could have prevented Order 66. We will break down their mistakes, examine the signs they ignored, and consider the paths they could have taken. Every great fall has a moment where it could have been stopped. And for the Jedi, that moment was there. It was always there. They just refused to see it. The Jedi Order, for all its wisdom, made a terrible mistake. They turned into soldiers, not peacekeepers, and that cost them everything. When war began, they should have known better. They should have seen the trap being set right in front of them. Palpatine did not need to be a military genius. He just needed the Jedi to forget who they were. And they did. They led battalions. They commanded fleets. They sat in war rooms debating strategy like generals, not monks. They thought they could play the Republic's game and still hold on to their way of life. But war changes everything. It made them blind. It made them trust the clones without hesitation. And worst of all, it made them think they were in control. The Jedi never considered that the very soldiers they fought beside could turn against them. They never thought for a second that loyalty could be manufactured, programmed, and waiting to be activated. Had they stayed out of the war, things would have been different. They could have remained on the sidelines, guided the Republic from a distance, and ensured their survival. But instead, they played right into Palpatine's hands. And once they had their boots on the battlefield, there was no way out. The Jedi believed they were invincible. They thought their wisdom was absolute. But wisdom means nothing when arrogance clouds your vision. Yoda himself admitted they were losing their ability to see the future, yet they still believed they could outthink the Sith. They had every warning they needed. The Force screamed at them. Anakin had visions. Dooku told Obi-Wan the truth. The dark side clouded everything, but the Jedi did not listen. They did not take a single step back to question what was happening. They simply marched forward, blinded by tradition and their belief in the Republic. Even when Anakin turned, it was not immediate. He struggled. He hesitated. He sought guidance. If even one Jedi had reached out to him, things could have changed, but they feared him. They kept him at a distance. They distrusted him. That fear pushed him closer to Sidious, and once that happened, it was already too late. There were too many warning signs, too many missed chances. The Jedi could have stopped Order 66 before it even began, but they could not see it, because they refused to see it. And when it finally happened, they were caught completely off guard. The Jedi did not understand the clones. They fought alongside them. They laughed with them, but they never truly understood them. They saw the clones as people, which was a good thing. But they ignored the fact that those people had something else inside them. Loyalty to the Republic. Loyalty to their training. Loyalty to something deeper than friendship. The Jedi never thought to ask what that truly meant. They never questioned why the clones followed orders without hesitation. They never looked at their programming and wondered if it could be turned against them. If they had, Order 66 would have never worked. They would have prepared countermeasures. They would have developed safeguards. They would have found the inhibitor chips long before Fives died trying to warn them. But they assumed the clones were just like them, able to think and question things freely. The tragedy is that the clones were not evil. They were victims. Victims of programming. Victims of a war they had no choice in. And when the time came, they followed their orders, because that is what they were made to do. The Jedi never saw it coming, because they never thought to look. The Republic was already dead before Order 66. It just had not fallen yet. Palpatine did not destroy it. He simply waited for it to collapse on its own. He watched as corruption spread, as people lost faith, and as the Senate became nothing more than a Stage 4 empty promises. By the time the Jedi realized what was happening, it was too late. They thought they could stop the Sith with a single duel. They thought they could remove Palpatine and restore balance. But the Republic was not a machine with a broken part. It was a building with no foundation, ready to crumble the moment someone pushed it. Even if Mace Windu had killed Sidious, what then? The Senate was still under his control. The clones were still programmed. The people had already turned against the Jedi. Nothing would have changed. The Republic was already lost, and the Jedi never had a plan to rebuild it. They put all their hope in a Republic that no longer existed. They could have seen the signs. They could have understood that the war was just the final step in a slow death. But instead, they fought for something that had already been taken from them. The Jedi could have prevented Order 66, but not in the way they thought. It was not about fighting harder or being stronger. It was about seeing the truth before it was too late. And the truth was simple. The war was a lie, and they never should have been part of it. If they had walked away, Palpatine's plan would have fallen apart. He needed the Jedi to be soldiers. He needed them to be the face of the war. Without them, he would have had no enemy to frame. No warriors to brand as traitors. No Order 66. They could have taken the younglings. They could have gone into hiding. They could have prepared for the real war, the one that was coming after the Republic fell. But instead, they clung to their positions. They clung to a council that was already powerless. And because of that, they were wiped out. There was another way, a different way, a path that would have saved them. But they refused to see it. They refused to adapt. And in the end, that was their greatest mistake. Order 66 was not just the fall of the Jedi, it was the fall of everything they had built. The Republic they fought for became an empire. The clones they trusted became their executioners. The people they swore to protect turned against them. It was not just a betrayal, it was a complete erasure. Palpatine did not kill the Jedi. He made them irrelevant. He turned them into relics of a broken past. The galaxy forgot them. The Force forgot them. They were nothing but whispers in the shadows, ghosts of an age that had been wiped away. And the worst part is, it was preventable. If the Jedi had seen the truth, if they had listened instead of assumed, if they had trusted instead of feared, they would have survived. But survival requires more than just strength. It requires awareness. And that was the one thing they lacked when it mattered most. Their story became a lesson. A lesson of failure. A lesson of arrogance. A lesson of what happens when you refuse to see what is right in front of you. Order 66 did not have to happen. But because of their blindness, it did.